What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Minnie, and today I'm coming at you with another How I Build It video. Before we get into that, a couple of quick reminders as always. Don't forget to hit that like button and make sure to follow the channel to keep getting notifications whenever I release more content. So today we're going to talk about the Tier 10 French tech tree cruiser Marseille. This was the result of the line split when warships added the second set of French cruisers, and it has rapidly become one of my favorite tech tree cruisers to play. I love the speed, I love the guns, it's a lot of fun, and I just really enjoy it overall and all around with everything it has to offer. So let's talk about what you should be taking on your Marseille. First off, just a quick reminder, on the main battery you are running the 330mm guns, and then you're running the 139mm secondaries. That does factor into how we build this. So let's go talk equipment. For equipment, in slot 1, generally I run main armaments mod. You always want to make sure that you're keeping your main battery from becoming incapacitated, especially with all your guns on the front. It means that it's a lot more likely that you're going to lose guns and lose them quickly. I don't find auxiliary armaments mod or magazine to be worth as much, and while you could get DCP mod 1, I don't see it as being worth it over making sure you don't lose your guns. In slot 2, this is where you have the real question. I run engine boost mod 1. The Marseille is a fast ship. I love having 30% more time on my engine boost because I find that to be really worthwhile, especially later in games when you may have to do a quick push from one side of the map to the other because you've won your side, but the other side's losing and you need to get over. I don't find defensive AA to ever be worth it in today's day and age for warships. And while hydroacoustic search is tempting, I think the speed is worth more to me. I can see the argument for hydroacoustic, but I just prefer the speed. In slot 3, I do take secondary battery modification 1. I used to take aiming systems mod 1 because it was nice to get the upgrade dispersion and the 5% battery firing range on the secondaries. But with the recent change to secondary batteries, I find it worth it to get that extra range because it really does show up, especially when you're fighting DDs that are at a little bit further range than you're comfortable trying to fire. In slot 4, I take prop mod. I like to be able to slow and then speed up on the turn of a dime because you really do need to be able to move in this ship. Your best advantage besides your armor is just your ability to not be there when the enemy's trying to shoot you, and I find that worth more than steering gears. Slot 5 is a no-brainer. You're going to go concealment system mod 1 because you want that lower detectability as well as the increased dispersion against you. And then in slot 6, I personally go with the reload. You lose some traverse speed admittedly, but I prefer the reload. Some people are like, why don't you take the extra range? And there's an argument with having 19.6 kilometer range to take that. But generally speaking, I prefer to have the reload, and I think 12% quicker reload is worth more to me than the 16% range. And auxiliary armaments mod does present an interesting argument on Marseille because of the fact that you could pair it with the DFAA, as well as then having increased secondary battery reload time. But I generally prefer to have the ability to do a quicker reload and slower traverse. Over under consumables, I take the Hydra. We get the 5 kilometer detection of ships for 121 seconds. And, of course, the engine boost. Obviously, you can swap the engine boost for fighter, and you could swap the hydroacoustic search for DFAA, but it's not really worth it in my opinion. Signals. If you're going to run signals, this is generally where I end up. If I'm in ranked, I would probably swap in a Juliet Charlie to have the no chance of detonation, but I like having the fire and flooding recovery time lowered. You want the extra secondary battery range. The continuous A damage is where I would generally swap off that one to detonation if I'm worried about detonating. You want the extra ship speed, you want the reload of consumables, you want the extra heal, and I do like having the extra hydroacoustic search time to balance out the fact I took the speed boost. What does this give me before we even look at commander skills, which do affect these obviously as well? Well, my secondary battery is now up to 12.5 kilometers when I combine it with the captain skills, meaning that I have the same range as the German battleships. So I am firing back when they're fighting me at that range. If a DD's spotted 10 kilometers away from me, even though I've got a longer reload, I've still got the ability to get shots out on him. And they have good damage numbers at that point. With the 23mm armor pen, we're going to be smacking a lot of those DDs, and we're going to get the secondary hits on the superstructure of battleships. For the main battery, this brings us to a 21-second reload time with a 34.5-second 180-degree turn time. The turret traverse is slow, even though, and we're going to talk about this in a second, we have on the ship commander the turret traverse bump. Because all 3 guns are at the front, you do want that, but it's worth it. This also means our concealment ends up at 11.6. Finally, let's talk about the commander. So for the commander, I'm running Charles-Henri Honoré. He is one of the doubloon captains you can get. I do this because I like having the 20% instead of 15% on Grease the Gears, and I like having the increased AR timing so that it gets more of a buff as I take damage. After that, I prefer consumable enhancement to have the extra hydro and engine boost time as opposed to the recommended DE. I don't see DE as really worth it. Most of the time in this ship, you are firing AP. The HE chance, while tempting because of the secondary shells, I just don't find it worth it. And the ammunition explosion radius when attacking subs is another thing that's tempting, but I'm not running into enough subs generally to justify it. You absolutely then want to take Superintendent, so you have the extra reload, the extra speed boost, the extra hydro, and the extra heal. Concealment Expert is a no-brainer. I like to run top grade Gunner because you get the secondary battery reload time, and whenever a ship's inside my standard detectability range, I get the extra 8% bump on my Bane battery reload time, which means I'm down to 19 seconds at standard, and so when you combine that with the MBRB, that's getting me more and more shots within the time that I have. That leaves you 4 remaining points. I like to take Pack-a-Punch because while the torpedo damage doesn't matter to me, the 20% secondary battery firing range is a really nice grab for that 12.5 kilometer range. If you're like, I don't care about the secondaries, I'm not going to build it for that, then I would say go with their survivability experts so that you get that extra health. You could make an argument for just taking the heavy AP shells because the heavy AP shells does bring your damage up to over 10k on a sit. But generally speaking, I just like having that secondary range for DDs. And then with the 1 shot left, I will always, always, always take Gun Feeder because I like having the main battery shell be able to do a quick switch if I need to. They argue for Last Stand, but generally speaking, usually your engine isn't at risk of getting hit. Because all 3 guns of yours are on the front, you're usually not worried about taking shots as you're running away, because you're trying to position yourself where you're always bow in and have that advantage. Final comments for economic bonuses. I generally run credits, Commander XP, and free XP. It is a tier 10. You have the ability to get yourself those nice bonuses on it. Obviously, you don't need ship XP because there's nothing above it, but you're not required to run any bonuses on it if you don't want. Anyway, that's how I build my Marseille. Like I said, make sure to follow for more great content. And as always, this is Minnie, signing off.